Well, welcome to Leadership Unstuck. I'm here with MaxMcKeown today, and Max, welcome. It's good to have you here. And in a moment, we're going to get a sneak peek. You're not really from around here, are you?
I'm not. I'm from the great United Kingdom so far. Yeah, Great Britain.
Well, Max, it's good to have you. If you're not familiar with Max, and by the way, I just got connected to him because of a great book, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, called The Strategy Book. And see, look, I have a copy of it right here.
I have one here as well. Look at that. Everybody has got one of these books. It is. Incredible. It is actually the best-selling strategy book in Europe at the moment.
Well, so very good. Congratulations.
I know you've got Porter and all that stuff, yes, but you know we're beyond that. We're going somewhere else.
Well, Max has done quite a bit of writing, including the strategy book and adaptability, both which came out last year. And he's a consultant, and he's worked with the Wharton Business School. And it's a privilege to have you here. But I'm not going to do your story justice. For those that don't know you, can you give a little bit more of your story, Max?
Okay, yeah, I guess I should. So my real focus, both in my work and in my research, is how people shape the future. So that's my thing. So that's led me into a bachelor degree in business, and then into an MBA and a PhD, and then into psychology, a member of the British Psychological Society. But it's all the same kind of thing. How do groups of people, how do individuals shape the social world, their future? So that's my thing academically. And then that led me into writing some books, and that led me deeper into real organizations, because that's where I was working. And so the Microsofts and the Googles and the Sonys, Nokias, these large organizations who really, they do a lot of planning and they do a lot of strategy, but they're disappointed with the results quite often. It's not where they intended going. And I work with them. I get them into a room, and we make strategy a lot of fun, which is a relief to them, because they think it's about, creating documents and PowerPoint templates or something. That kind of thing. So I have a huge white wall, sort of 20, 30 feet long, and we illustrate that, and everybody gets involved in, where we're coming from, where are we, and where are we going to get to. So yeah, it's a very down-to-earth sort of view of strategy, but with some real foundation in the good stuff, the kind of the deep thinkers in this area.
Well, it sounds like you and I are on similar tracks, though you're working primarily with business, and I've worked with a couple of businesses, but I'm primarily working with churches, nonprofits. One of the challenges I find with the organizations I work with, Max, is there's an understanding now that we need to have clarity of vision, and everybody has a vision statement, a mission statement, and even a lot of the organizations I've worked with have now established core values that shape who they are. So my question for you is it enough to have clarity of vision but not address the strategy? Can you get by without that?
Well, I mean, let's talk it through. It's entirely possible to have a supposedly clear idea of where you want to go, and then have absolutely no idea how to get there. I think we're agreed on that, yeah? It must be equally, you also could have a really clear sentence that's totally vague. You could have a very clear statement that isn't really where you want to go. I got to say, even though there are some traditional models inside the strategy book, because I want people to understand strategy, there's no talk really about visions, values, those terms, because all that does is confuse people. And I think it's, that's the first step. The reason that most business people, maybe non-profits, and the people in the community, the organizations you're working with, the reason they sometimes say, hey, I'm not sure if we want to do the strategy, is they know in their gut that something's not quite right. Humans are really good at shaping the future. It's what we're good at. That's why we've got these great big brains. And we've put all that energy into developing the ability to imagine the future and to plan, all that goal-directed stuff. And I think a lot of those words get in the way. So yes, you need to answer the question, where are we? Where do we want to go? What does it look like? what excites us, what are the 3 to 5 things we want to do this week and next week to get there. But do not get yourself hung up on missions personally. Now, obviously, if you've just done all that stuff, then don't be disappointed. But I think it has to be much clearer than that. Strategy is about how do we get somewhere we really want to go to. That simple?
That makes sense. All right. So beginning with that foundation, then, I don't want to give away your entire book because people should read it. But what are some key tips? What are some key approaches to developing a strategy that really works then?
Well, there are the 5 questions. Let me imagine we can do an inexpensive version of what I'd do with somebody, I think, if I was in the room. I would first of all just divide, say, your whiteboard that's on your wall or something into 3 sections. This is the inexpensive version of the very expensive stuff that I would do for someone else. And just really say, where are we currently?
Yeah.
But where are we currently, as in the past, because that's just gone. That was yesterday. Where are we? And then really, what do we think the future would look like? And just doing that exercise and then saying in the middle, what is it we would have to change to get to where we want to be?
Yeah.
That is the core of strategy. And the strategy book is full of questions people can ask at different stages of the journey that their organization is taking, to make sure you don't fail in some wild way, to make sure that if you're getting old, you don't get a bit too creaky, and you got arthritis in your strategic limbs. But divide it out into those 3 areas and then ask the additional 3 questions, which are, how are we going to get there? What kind of change do we need to make? And how are we going to measure that? And the reason we keep it so simple is so that you start to learn every single week, every single day, how is that working out? Is that working? Is that idea we had a year ago really working? Is it or not? And that's what strategy fails at most of the time. It's not a living thing, and it should be.
So on those initial 3 questions, these are the words that I use to help people understand is first we have to get perspective of where we are. Actually, it helps a little bit to talk about where we've come from, too. To identify where we are right now. So that's perspective. And then we have to plan. We have to plan for where we're wanting to go. But then the key thing that I see a lot of organizations do is they kind of just stop it there. They don't think about the intentionality of what needs to happen today. What is the action that needs to happen today to see that plan, that future accomplished? And so here's the next question I have for you, Max, is what can we do to make sure once we've gone through a strategic process that execution actually happens, that the strategy is implemented, executed, and that it does what it's supposed to do?
Well, clearly both of us are talking about a very similar thing, that when the strategy is a living thing, you don't have this big gap between here's our plan and then let's figure out something to do. Mm-hmm. There isn't that big division. So first of all, you make it a living thing. I mean, I try to get as many people in the organization involved in that strategic process, but you make the strategic process a daily process so that the plan becomes very easy. Of course I'm doing the strategy. I don't know in your organization, but if we're greeting people, whether it's a non-profit or a community organization or a company, when we're greeting people, that's part of the strategy, isn't it? The strategy is we're going to welcome people in and we're going to look after them. Mm-hmm. So when I want somebody doing that job, I want them to understand that that's part of the strategy, what we're doing today. And then when you're looking at that, you go, hey, well, that strategy is working because people are coming. And that's what we wanted in the first place. Look, it appears that the strategy is working. I think if you keep it that clear, then execution and strategy are not 2 separate things that need sort of joining together. They are the same thing. Let's not make it more complicated than it has to be. You don't want thinking and then separate by doing and then sticking it together. Do the same thing. I don't have time for doing both anyway.
That's right. I love that. All right. So, and you've kind of addressed my final question for you is I've worked with some organizations that think, once a year we need to go through kind of a review, a strategy process, but you're kind of suggesting that this is actually a continuous process, that it almost becomes part of an organization's operating system. Is that true?
But I mean, I'm a father, and I think this matters. So I'm an individual, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I've got 4 children, I've got somewhere I'd like to go. So every day I'm looking at kind of where would I like to go, and I'm adjusting. I do that naturally anyway. But if I can apply some kind of some more intelligent thinking to it and reach out to resources that help me do that better, then it is a continuous process. Every day I readjust. Okay, I'm a bit closer, and I gain confidence in my own end goal and my ability to get there. And it's exactly the same for a team or for a business or for a corporation. And it's when those corporations divide out these things that you really get the problem. So I would put, to use this whiteboard, use this one page, put it everywhere that you meet, and include it in the agenda of every meeting that you have. So every little sub-team, they know, well, that's the strategy, how are we doing? Mm-hmm. That's the strategy, how are we doing? Do we need to change the strategy, or do we need to change what we're doing? And in that way, it becomes a living, powerful thing. And that's what the highly adaptable, highly successful organizations do.
Max, we've been talking specifically about some of the concepts in the strategy book, but give us a little preview of your other book, Adaptability.
Okay, so because I focused on things like leadership and strategy and innovation, I kept thinking those were really great, but it was possible to have a beautiful strategy still fail, or to have loads of amazing creative innovation but still go out of business or not succeed. So I was thinking about what made the real difference. And the more I looked at it, the more it was the field of adaptability, the ability to deliberately adapt. So not just adapt or die, but how do you deliberately create, this transcendent future that we want, change the rules of the game, get to paradise, in whatever terms. So the strategy book looks at, in sort of 17 lessons, what we really know about adaptability from psychology, from social science, from biology, from history, and so on. And it sort of posits that there are 3 steps, really, that we need to recognize that adaptation is required. So we need to know, we need to be plugged into the world. We need to understand the kind of adaptation that is required. People usually skip that step. And then we have to do what is necessary. And we talk about high adaptability cultures, or high adaptability killer cultures, like the killer app. High adaptability killer cultures, these hack organizations who just self-renew all the time. They're transforming because it's fun, it's joyous. Every day is a new day and it's exciting. And then in those organizations, you develop high adaptability, high achievement individuals, so that people gain confidence in their ability to adapt. And we call them ha-has. This has sort of really deep psychological roots, really. These are the people who laugh in the face of adversity. They get more powerful. And there's been a lot of research done into this kind of high resiliency, high adaptability individual, that when they really get to understand that they can adapt, then adversity is their making point rather than their breaking point. They get across it, and we've seen this in earthquakes. They've tested this afterwards, and they found those who are closest to the tremor are the people who tend to adapt the best afterwards, not the people who just had some bad news on the TV. The people who really had to face something, they gain this confidence in adapting in the future. And that's what adaptability is about, really, this marvelous human ability to change and to change the situation, and not just to accept a miserable situation and sort of live out your life depressed.
Well, it sounds like I have another book to add to my wish list, so I appreciate you giving us that quick summary. Again, I've been with MaxMcKeown, and Max, we really appreciate you sharing these few minutes with us today. If folks want to follow a little bit more of your writing, follow your journey, where can we send them?
Well, there's a website where I put sort of blogs and various documents, www.maxmckeown.com, and then join me on Twitter. I love talking to people there, so at MaxMcKeown on Twitter, you'll find me there.
Very good.
And of course, all good bookshops and all that stuff.
That's true. Very good. All right. Thanks again, Max.
All right, then. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.